So first tell me your name, your age, and who you are.
My name is Vitek Kruta, and I'm 53 years old. And who I am is a question that I'm trying to answer my entire life. But what I do is I am currently the co-founder and director of Gateway City Arts down in downtown Holyoke. I'm also the owner of a restoration company called VK Restoration. And I'm an artist. And that's pretty much what I do right now.
Okay. How long have you lived in Holyoke?
I lived in Holyoke 9 years.
What was it like during the time that you have been living in Holyoke?
It was very, very intense involvement with the community and work with people, and it has been really great.
How would you say Holyoke has changed over the years that you've lived here?
Holyoke changed very much because there's a lot of effort put into revitalizing the downtown, which I'm proud to say I'm part of it. And there are a lot of new incentives happening. There's a lot of attention being paid to Holyoke these days. And it is very exciting to see the process and how a city is evolving.
Do you miss anything about how Holyoke used to be?
Well, it's not much I can say about it because I have not lived here long enough, so I only hear stories from people. And I can imagine those stories and how hard some people experience these stories. Because I come from a country that used to be a dictatorship. I have seen my country deteriorated from absolute glory and beautiful city into almost a rubble. I have seen the process of deterioration, and I have seen also the broken hearts of people that they just couldn't take it, so they would leave the place and live in some sort of, a kind of painful memories, great memories, but away from the city of Holyoke. I met a lot of people, they practically left Holyoke because they couldn't stay here. And I left my country because I couldn't stay there. So there's a lot of similarities that I'm experiencing as an immigrant and as somebody who came to Holyoke from as far as Europe. So.
Who are some of the important people you've met while you've been in Holyoke?
Every person I met is important to me. Everybody in my life has impact on me, and to say who is more important or less important, I just can't do that. But I can say that there are a lot of great people, and Holyoke has an amazing community of people.
Do you remember any great stories or legends about your city?
Meaning Holyoke? Or I come from Prague. I can tell you a lot of stories from there. And those stories are, again, very similar. It's interesting when you look at the history of Holyoke, and it's the industrial era of the 1800s, where all these factories and industrial revolution is happening. And the same thing was happening in Europe, in Prague and any other city. And anywhere you travel and you go to cities that were built around this time, they actually look alike. They look the same. They are the same architecture, same factories, even the same designs on the walls of the original buildings. Very, very similar. So it was actually amazing era of the 19th century where the industrial revolution traveled all over the world and made a big footprint on the rest of the world. So in that sense, I feel at home.
Okay. What was it like in Prague, or where you grew up?
When I grew up and when I was 6 years old, I had the Soviet tanks driving over my toys in my sandbox. I experienced the invasion, and I have seen people being shot and killed and building destroyed, and that made a huge impact on me because Prague is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and it has been today practically almost completely restored, which is wonderful to see. But if you see that kind of beauty being stamped on by morons and by military might, and you experience the aggression of somebody basically destroying your home and trying to tell you how you are supposed to live your life, that leaves a huge impact on you. So that was my childhood. That was what it was like in Prague. But at the same time, wherever I go, Prague is in my heart, and I will never forget what that city is like. But I have to also tell you that I have been traveling around the world. I have been living in different countries. I lived in Paris, and I lived in Germany, and in all other places. And I have been in emigration for 30 years. But after I moved to Holyoke, for the first time in those 30 years, I felt like being at home again.
What is your earliest memory of being in Holyoke?
My earliest memory being in Holyoke is 8 years ago when my partner and friend, when I was looking for a house and a studio, she found a house on Fairfield Avenue. And Fairfield Avenue is a beautiful, beautiful street, which also happens to be Holyoke's first historic district. And so one of the houses was available. And when I went to the house and I looked at it, I said, absolutely not. This is not what I'm looking for, because I was looking for a studio. I was looking for big space where I can spread out and do my paintings and do some restoration work. But then I walked in, and it was you walked inside, and there are this beautiful wooden paneling and carved fireplace mantle and staircase coming up with these wainscotings that look like leather, right? And high ceiling. And I walked in, and I felt like I can get used to it. I used to live actually in a castle when I was in Czechoslovakia, which is a different story. And it was just suddenly like I fell in love with the house. And that was my first memory, coming to Holyoke, walking into this house. I was not even in downtown at that time. So.
What do you do for fun? What would you do for fun?
Well, I compose music, I paint, I make videos, I cook. I love to cook for fun. I like to watch movies, and I like to create anything I can create and be in the process of creating something I like.
How would your classmates remember you?
I hope in a good way. It's hard to say because since I left school, I have not seen any of those people. I hope they are remembering good things. Yeah. But one person said, it's better to have a bad business than a good job. And I was like, what does that mean? And today I know what it means. Is having your own business is a tough thing. You really work 32 hours a day. And at the same time, you have the freedom to do whatever you want. If you decide to take vacation tomorrow, you can do that. But you also have to be responsible enough and make sure that you run your own economics so you don't go bankrupt, and you project what you make, what you do, what you spend. So you have to be responsible for your own action all the time. But it's great.
If you could do anything now, what would you do and why?
I love what I do, so I don't necessarily have a desire to do anything else. And I think that way I'm very lucky. I do love everything I'm doing right now. So, to be honest, I really don't want to do anything else. Moving here from Germany was less brutal than moving from Czech Republic to Germany. Um, every time you move, you obviously have to learn another language. So I speak 4 languages, and uh, I have to learn how to understand beyond the language. That is, to me, the most challenging thing, because you think you understand the people that you are talking to, and the fact is that you come from different culture, different background, and just to give you an example, every day somebody make references to some show that was on the television 50 years ago. Hey, do you remember blah blah blah? What are the cultural references? What is, those are things that they are way beyond the language. And those were the first challenges I had when I moved here, that I had no idea about the banking system and about how things work and where to go, and I actually didn't know too many people and didn't know the language. I was here probably about 12 years, which was for the first time where I felt comfortable to express myself in English. And I used to write poetry in Czech, and so I started to write in English and kind of dabbed into that. And I love certain poets like Rainer Maria Rilke, who is a German poet of 19th century, and I have read his translation in Czech and in German and English. And that itself is another interesting way of understanding how every language and every country have a different understanding of what the words mean. So again, to make the long story short, the communication itself is the biggest challenge, to be able to tell people who you are so they can understand you, but at the same time to be able to understand people where they come from and why are they saying what they are saying and what it actually means.
And I also wanted to ask you, how is your family doing in Czechoslovakia, and what today? How are they doing today in 2016?
Oh, 2000. Well, again, with the Velvet Revolution in '89, everything changed and became, very similar to any country in the Western world, basically. Czech Republic before the war and before the communist takeover was one of the richest and most advanced countries in Europe, technologically, culturally, music, arts, everything, and it was trumped on by communist morons for 40 years. No maintenance of anything. People being put in jail because they were intelligent. Teachers couldn't teach. Singers couldn't sing their songs because they didn't want to sing the song of the communist propaganda. So that itself created. Now I kind of lost my train of thought, but that itself created environment that was kind of crazy. And
so they're doing okay.
So all that changed. Yes, all that changed. So now I keep telling people, now the people of Czech Republic has the good problems. Before that, they had just had a stupid problems because somebody else created them for them.
Is there anything you want to add that we didn't ask you, or you have any other questions?
Russian, Czech, German, and English.
How was living in Paris? Or no, he said he moved. You think he
Germany and Paris, yeah. It was kind of wild. I was young and stupid. So I was making lots of mistakes, but I also learned a lot. And again, it's always fascinating to me to discover new places, new people, new habits, and it's a learning process, and I like to learn.
Would you say you like to travel?
I not anymore, because I traveled so much that I'm like, if I can stay in my studio for 3 weeks, I'm the happiest person in the world. Yeah.